Welcome to part 2 of Albion, Heart of the World. We've looked at the nature of reality and the Earth energy grid with its centre in the British Isles, and now we ease the pace and meander through beautiful Britain to feature two of the major lines of force that form the heart of the world. The Michael-Mary line between the west and east coasts of England, and the spine of Albion between southern England and the north of Scotland. Both are expressed as male and female lines which cross at particular power centres, featuring ancient hill forts, churches, cathedrals, and locations the ancients considered special or sacred. Albion is crisscrossed by an incredible network of energy lines, ley lines, and power points where they cross. But some have become better known than others in esoteric circles, and I'm walking towards one of them now. It's called the Michael-Mary line. This is Brentor Church, built in the 13th century at the point on Brent's Tor where the Michael and Mary lines cross and interweave. It's the highest parish church in England at 1,100 feet, and it's among the smallest, as we'll see. And every time I come here and I look out across beautiful, beautiful Devon from this high point, I think I've died and gone to heaven. You see what I mean about one of the smallest parish churches in England, dedicated to St. Michael, appropriate on the point where the Michael-Mary lines meet. So why is it that so many churches, not just in Albion, but all over the world, are built on these power points, on these ley lines that were so important to the pagans, the Celts, the Druids? Because some Christian believers knew the power of these centers and wanted to harness that power with their churches and through their churches. And others who came from a different direction believed that the pagan power points were evil, and a church had to be built upon them to suppress that evil. So this is why you see churches, cathedrals galore on these power points across the world. So from here at Brent Tor, the Michael-Mary line weaves its way east through Glastonbury with its amazing tour through the Stone Circle of Avebury and on to Hopton-on-Sea and out into the ocean. And way east from here, it crosses another major line in the heart of England. And that one is going to take me home to the Isle of Wight. This is one of my favourite places on earth. I know it as Culver Cliff. The official name of this headland is Bembridge Down on the Isle of Wight, and there behind me the sweep of Sandown Bay. And I fell in love with the Isle of Wight when I was just a little kid on holiday here. And I was playing Isle of Wight ferries in the paddling pool at infant school. And I always wanted to live here. And I moved here in 1982. I've come here often several times a week, ever since, year after year after year. And then I did a talk on the Isle of Wight, and the next day I was showing someone this view when I saw someone walking down the road with a t-shirt on that told me that they'd been at the show the day before. So I stopped, wound the window down, and said, "Hello, what are you doing up here?" He said, he says, I'm following the information in this book. And he gave me this, The Spine of Albion by Gary Bilcliffe and Caroline Hoare. And it's an absolutely fascinating book which tells the story of how over 20 years, using dowsing rods and other techniques, they charted an energy line through the center of Britain, Albion, which is why they call it the Spine of Albion, which starts on the Isle of Wight and goes all the way up and out through the top of Scotland, and goes through cathedrals, standing stone circles, sacred hills, earthworks and what have you that the ancients left us. And I realized that I'd been drawn to this place, and it was actually where part of this line comes into Britain. The Spine of Albion has two lines, like the Michael Mary line, one male, one female. The female they call Ellen, the male they call Belinus. The Belinus line comes onto the Isle of Wight, into Britain, down the bottom of the cliff. And right through this cliff, this place I've been drawn to for so long, comes the Ellen line. And they go up through the center of the British Isles, and they're like, almost like a serpent. They are coming together at key points, famous points, sacred points, as they are perceived, where they cross what are called nodes. And this is a line with the Michael Mary line that is a key part of the heart of the world, Albion.
Well, since we've been following it from Winchester, we've been sort of used to the feel of her flow, the width of her flow, the bands within it, and even the colour. Because if you use a spectrum, a colour spectrum, you can ask what colour is this line. And we find the female current is often a violet colour. The female current tends to be more sinuous through the landscape, and the male current tends to be much more straighter. And the male current goes mainly to hilltops and mounds, tumuluses, where the female current tends to stick to valleys and watery places and caves. And this is where she enters here at the Isle of Wight, the first point in Britain, a cave. That's the edge of her flow here. And it's pointing in the direction she's flowing.
So it's coming this way?
It's coming this way, yeah. And her width at the moment, this is something we've practiced for a long time, is quite wide. Just start and come to the edge here.
Right.
So that's a fairly wide line, and that differentiates what we call an energy dragon line from an ordinary ley line, or because lines are like the veins in the body. There are major lines and major veins and capillaries and small lines. But these energy lines, like Ellen and Belinus, are major. They're like main arteries.
And how do you know the difference between the male and the female?
Again, there's a feel for them. We often douse, is this Ellen I'm standing in, with a yes or no response. But because we started a trail by following the female and keep following her, we knew it was Ellen because we never lost her. We never lost a trace of her. We just carried on and carried on to right to the end here. But I often find that we know as soon as we walk into Ellen, there's a sort of warmer, more full sort of feminine feel, whereas this like a watery sort of lunary feel, whereas the male current feels a lot more powerful, much more sharper.
Now, you've gone from here all the way up the centre of the country and out to top of Scotland, dowsing these lines.
Yeah.
How the hell long did that take?
Well, it started in the early 90s with this sense that there was a north-south equivalent to the east-west Michael line. That was a north-south through route. And I came across a book in the Glastonbury bookshop by Guy Raglan Phillips called Brigantia. And he'd discovered this alignment of sites back in the early 70s. But he'd only explored it within the north of England. He hadn't explored it down south. All that he knew is that it progressed down to Winchester. So using Google Earth and lots of other sort of satellite maps and which are more accurate, I was able to accurately project it. And then I thought, well, if there is a male and female aspect to this alignment, then I'm going to have to go to somewhere where I'm sure it would cross, and that seemed to be Winchester, St Catherine's Hill.
So, Gary, we've come from the end of Culver and following the Ellen line, and the first thing we see is a bloody grey obelisk, which I know very well, coming up here so often.
Yeah.
And what is it about obelisks? Because I think you found there's a lot of obelisks on the Albion line.
There are a number on private estates produced in the 19th century and 18th century, and the currents seem to be drawn to them as if they're objects of power. And we believe that they're like stone aerials, and they draw the energy down from the upper atmosphere like orgone energy and empower whatever's on the obelisk. So this obelisk is dedicated to Lord Yarborough, the Earl of Yarborough. So he would be taking that power. It's important what's carved in the stone on the obelisk and the power that's been drawn to it. But the line doesn't like it. We found Ellen comes here and she kind of shrinks a little bit as if she doesn't like the energy of this great masculine sort of phallic symbol.
Yeah, and the Freemasons obviously, the whole obelisk thing goes back much further to Egypt, etc., and beyond. But the Freemasons use obelisks profusely everywhere, and it's always felt to me that these were ways of diminishing the power in the line.
And it's granite as well, a very high vibrational crystalline substance. So it is, and often when we come here we feel quite dizzy.
Well, we've come further down from Culver, or Bembridge Down as it's properly known, and it's a chalk seam, Gary, that starts where the cliff is at the end,
yes,
and goes right the way through the island, and it's just like a snake.
Yes.
Now, what's the significance of chalk? Because I remember I've been to other places like Uffington and many other places, sacred sites, power centres, and there's chalk.
Yes.
So what is it about chalk?
Well, I think because it's permeable and water goes through it, and often you find underground lakes, because usually at the bottom of chalk you find a layer of clay and the water can't get past that. So it's a clay, the chalk holds a lot of water underground, which we found with sacred sites and ceremonial places and psychic energies and apparitions, water seems to be the key factor. So I think the chalk plays a part there with sort of creating underground lakes beneath its layers.
Before the Albion line leaves the Isle of Wight, the female flow, or Ellen, passes through another place I've visited so many times, Quor Abbey, the Benedictine monastery completed in 1912 alongside the ruins of the St Mary's Abbey founded in 1132, which ended with the dissolution of the monasteries by Henry VIII in the 16th century. There is something about it. It's very captivating to the eye, isn't it?
It's almost Byzantine or Islamic, isn't it?
Yeah, you get that feel of it, don't you?
Yes.
If I'm here now, between the statue and
Yes.
the abbey, what would
standing on.
what would the Ellen line do to your dowsing?
Well, you get a sense in your solar plexus, for me, that rather like an excitement. Or you're looking forward to something, and you get that kind of pang in your solar plexus. And when I step into a current, I start to feel that. And if I'm on a journey with her, going through different places, the feeling's stronger. But if I'm away from her for a long period of time, it takes me a while to get back in again. So
It's almost like you're tuning in, aren't you?
You're tuning in and being accustomed to her energy. So it's like Hamish Miller said, that if you give up dowsing for 3 weeks, it can take you 3 weeks to become dowser again. As you step through the line, there are certain bands within it. And those bands are positive and negative, or male and female. Here the currents aren't crossing. The female current is connecting with this site. Perhaps it was the old abbey that was drawing the line, but for some reason she sort of been drawn into the new one as well, which means the feminine current here has intelligence and seeks to feed. And it's feeding off human consciousness. So the more people come here and think spiritually, the more she's drawn to that, to feed from it. People can manipulate it, like the Chinese geomancers. Their job was to influence the lines to go through the palaces, or build the palaces.
All right. In here, it's like this is extremely other dimensional. At this time, particularly at this time when we're here, it's kind of the sun's going down. You can feel this other world interpenetrating here.
And it's enhanced by the actual the shape of the building, the resonance, the Gothic arch, the windows, the light, all plays a part in raising the vibration.
And the Ellen line comes through here?
Right down the centre.
Right down the centre. Well, the Isle of Wight is a place where dimensional reality's thin, difference between them. My God, you don't feel it here.
You feel it here.
So we're coming up to big tower in this
Yes.
abbey, and people that are with us who came here earlier, they said this is where it's most powerful.
Yes.
Now that would be no surprise to you, would it?
No, because it is the focal point of the church. The altar is where is the Holy of Holies, but what makes it more powerful here, it's right underneath the tower. And the tower is basically a stone aerial. The limestone, the type of limestone, maybe the water energy underneath is creating this great vortex and drawing down orgone energy from the upper atmospheres. So that's why we found some of the greatest spires in most powerful cathedrals. And in the early churches, the altar was always underneath the towers, channeling that energy. But I think they realized after a while it was too strong, and they put the altars back into the sort of chancel.
Okay.
Well, since we've arrived here, we've just doused the Ellen flow, and she's probably 30-40% wider than she was the last time we visited here a couple of years ago. So something we often find that these energy lines expand when they are energized and feeling good. So the tower in some way plays a role with the energy of acting like an aerial. In the ideal world, she would come across the sea from Winchester, straight through the old abbey, which is where she was first planted, seeded, and then on towards the middle of the island. But instead, she sort of makes this flow from the sea to here, then through the ruins, and then on.
So as if this building has manipulated her flow. So, as you say, the architects who built this church knew what they were doing because they knew they could draw power to it.
They just don't want us to know.
No.
The Spine of Albion leaves the Isle of Wight, crosses the Solent, and very soon on the English mainland reaches this point on the outskirts of Winchester. Winchester has a long and ancient history of royal and political power. It's a very, very mystical history in many ways. And this juxtaposition of this Iron Age fort hill on the outskirts called St. Catherine's Hill and the location of Winchester Cathedral, which started being built in 1079 and was completed in 1532, it just shows how the pagans, as they were known, and the early Christians picked these power centers for their prime locations. And so we have a Iron Age hill fort, and on the other side, one of the biggest cathedrals of its type in Northern Europe. No accident. They were both looking for the power centers.
Some people believe St. Catherine's Hill is the hub of a wheel of energies. It has a history of occultism over many, many years. Recently, in the 1990s, there was evidence of some satanic activity on the hill.
As we go north on the Albion line, we come here to Dragon Hill in Uffington in Oxfordshire. And this is another point where the male and female aspects of the Spine of Albion come together and merge. And this has been an ancient site and a site which people focused upon as sacred for thousands of years. Why not? When not only the Spine of Albion comes through here, but north and south from this spot are the crossing of the Albion line by the Michael Mary line. And it has another place in mythical history, Dragon Hill. This, where I'm standing, is where George was supposed to have killed the dragon. And it's said that this patch behind me, this white patch of chalk, it's said that grass won't grow on there because that's where the dragon's blood was spilled. But most famous in this area is a magnificent white horse behind me on the hill. Well, they say it's a horse. There's a very good chance it's actually a dragon.
I think Uffington was a place that the priesthood closed down the energies before the Roman invasion, and I think it's still been kept closed until certain people come along and open that up again.
The male and female aspects of the line of Albion come together again here, this gorgeous place, right on the Oxfordshire-Warwickshire border. I've been here so many times, as I have for all these places, and they are absolutely lovely places to come. And from here, the line moves on where the male and female cross again in a place made very famous by a man called Shakespeare. Behind me is what is said to be the birthplace of William Shakespeare, writer of the Shakespeare plays. But did he? There are many people that believe that Shakespeare was a front, a cover for a man, among some others, called Francis Bacon. Francis Bacon was a very advanced esoteric thinker. He had great knowledge of the esoteric and would have had great knowledge of the energy system and the power that is there to be tapped into if you know what you're doing. And it just so happens that the spine of Albion goes through Stratford upon Avon. This is Holy Trinity Church in Stratford upon Avon, and here, as the book points out, the Ellen and Belinus lines cross again at a node point. And where do they cross? Yet again, right under the tower. And this is so common, so constant, there's no way that those towers weren't placed there, because they knew what that point really was. Bar Beacon is a high point north of Birmingham in the West Midlands and another node or crossing place on the Albion line. Imagine the effect on the energy flow of passing through the vast expanse of one of Britain's biggest urban areas. Bar Beacon is steeped in stories and legends about ghostly and paranormal activity, as are so many points on the grid like the Isle of Wight. Half an hour's drive north of Bar Beacon is yet another ancient hill fort, this time at Castle Ring, the highest point in the Cannock Chase area of outstanding natural beauty in Staffordshire. Castle Ring is one of the biggest Iron Age hill forts in Britain, built about the same time as the ones at Uffington and St Catherine's Hill. The Ellen and Belinus lines cross in the centre of the circle, and many other lines meet here too. Once again, like so many points on the Albion line, it has considerable Druidic history. Another 10 miles and still on Cannock Chase, the male and female lines cross the estate at Shugborough, once home of the Anson family or Earls of Lichfield, including the late Patrick Lichfield, the high society photographer and cousin to the Queen. Shugborough apparently means territory of the dragon, with Shug meaning dragon, while other historians say Shug means demon. Shugborough, now run by the National Trust, brings me to another common theme of the energy grid system. So many of the great houses and mansions and palaces in the British Isles are built on significant places in the energy grid and on power points. And Shugborough is just one example. Many were located in these places because it allowed them to tap in to the power of the grid, and also, under cover of the house, they could partake in satanic rituals which suppress the frequency of the grid. Now, I'm not saying that happened here, because I don't know, but there are some interesting connections. The two most influential people in regard to Shugborough were two brothers, George Anson, who was an admiral of the fleet, and his kin, Thomas Anson. Now, George Anson is reputed to have been a member of the Priory of Sion. This is a mysterious secret society connected to the whole story of the Grail. While Thomas was a close associate of a man called Sir Francis Dashwood, and it was he of the infamous devil-worshipping Hellfire Club. Thomas Anson knew many of its other members too. The Hellfire Club was located in chalk caves created by Dashwood in the 18th century under West Wickham Hill on his estate in Buckinghamshire, once the site of an Iron Age fort and thus likely to be an energetic power centre. Dashwood and his fellow so-called elite, including American founding father Benjamin Franklin, would attend gatherings in the caves that included orgies, drinking to massive excess, and, it is strongly rumoured, satanic rituals of human sacrifice. See the iconic 2022 Halloween special when we went inside the caves. These were the sort of people then who were associates of Thomas Anson of Shugborough. And at the same time, Thomas Anson was connected to the Lunar Society, another esoteric grouping. And among the members of the Lunar Society was a man called Erasmus Darwin. He was grandfather of Charles Darwin, author of the whole survival of the fittest, genetics explains everything theory. And Erasmus Darwin was also grandfather to Francis Dalton, another family connected to the Lunar Society. And he was the man who coined the word eugenics, which was based on the whole Darwin idea of genetics is all. What's interesting is that these people had access to the secret society knowledge where they were aware that genetics is not all. It doesn't explain all. And it was just a cover to keep from the population the truth about the nature of reality. So many world events, world-changing events, and things that influenced the direction of the world were hatched in houses like this all over the country that were sitting next to or on power points of the Albion grid. This is the mysterious Shepherd's Monument in the grounds at Shugborough, and it was installed by Admiral George Anson in the 18th century. And it's said to be connected to the Priory of Sion, of which George Anson was said to be a member, and to the Knights Templar Secret Society, and to be encoded in esoteric secrets which people have spent a long time trying to work out. There is, for instance, this row of letters at the bottom, and then there is this, Et in Arcadia. And according to the Albion book, Et in Arcadia means and I in Arcadia, which means even in the heavenly lands of the gods, which the ancient Greeks called Arcadia, there is no escape from death. No escape from death for the gods. Could that be other levels of the simulation that I talk about in my book, The Trap? Now, the Ellen line of the Albion line, the female, goes, according to the book, through this monument and straight across the river to another one called the Cat Monument with its horned rams and griffins. Just under 40 miles north of Shugborough, I've come with my daughter Kerry and her sound bowl and a group of friends to one of my favourite locations on the spine of Albion, Cloud Hill, near Congleton in Cheshire, which dominates the landscape in all directions. Cloud Hill was the location of yet another ancient hill fort, and for me, the Cloud is a power centre of enormous significance. At the bottom of the hill, the Ellen line flows through a group of stones called the Bride Stones, a name believed to originate with the ancient fertility goddess Bride, Bridie, or Bridget. The stones are said to have been here for 4,000 years, and there were far more at one time over a much wider area. In the group with us was Tracy Mullis, a friend of mine from the Isle of Wight, and a very gifted intuitive who tunes in to other dimensional energies.
I feel this is like where people might have been brought to their death or where they were coming for intense healing. There's a lot of grief around here. Actually, it's making me shake. I also feel like there's, I don't know whether it's spells or prayers or whatever been put into the actual stones.
Yeah, I think it seems to have been a place of, at least in some periods, of sacrifice.
Okay, I don't like it. I'd rather not be in here. It's making me feel really uncomfortable. Especially my tummy and my legs are a bit shaky. From the book, there's been a lot of strange things gone on here. There was one bloke, he's come down the road and he's desperate for a wee, so he's stopped his car and he's got out. And he's come to have a wee, and he went back to his car and it wouldn't start. So he opens the bonnet, and then he notices lights coming here and like the cascade of lights coming from the stones and, you know, balls of light. And then next thing he remembers, he's 656 feet away, only wearing his trousers. And he has no idea what happened in between. And his trousers, he said, was alive with static electricity. And interestingly, you know, we've just checked the microphones because of interference, like crackling and stuff. We've had that at so many of these places because of the energy. It feels like a deceitful energy, so whether people were brought here under false pretenses as well.
Well, according to the official story, this goes back to 2300 BC, how the knowledge was lost. They smacked up the stones to build roads and walls and even decorate kind of gardens. And one guy who was working on the Manchester Ship Canal, he came here to demonstrate how his explosive technique worked. And he got one of the biggest stones here and blew it in half. Well, blew it from the ground, really. Bride stones comes from Bride, or Bridie, or Bridget, who was an ancient goddess, where they came here to worship. Yeah, apparently the book was saying that some of the locals, they go past this place very quickly.
Okay, I'm not surprised. I don't like it here. So that singer bowl is amazing. That's changing the vibration here, so I can feel my heart starting to open.
The energy's changed, yeah.
Yeah.
The energy's changed for sure.
Yeah.
The Ellen line leaves the Bridestones and flows to the top of Cloud Hill, where it crosses the male Belinus line at another node point. We climbed the 1,200 feet through beautiful woodlands to be met with a fantastic panorama as we neared the summit where the lines meet. We were followed by the setting sun, and it beamed its spotlights through the clouds as we made our way from the Bridestones. Just as we reached the top, the clouds opened to deliver a memorable finale. How often such synchronicity has happened to me in these visits to power centers. The reason I brought my mate from the Isle of Wight, Tracy, up here is because when I said to her back on the Isle of Wight about the cloud, she went, ooh, didn't you? Ooh, like that. Ooh, that's powerful. So you've now experienced it, Tracy. What do you think?
I do think it's very powerful, it's very peaceful, and it's got such a different feeling to the other place. So this is almost like, I felt like I was on a pilgrimage to a temple. There was that force field that was around, the green and blue force field, which was also, they're like healing colours, aren't they? So a place for healing as well.
But when I've been coming up the spine of Albion for the film, and I came here last time, I just had the feeling that this, if not the cloud itself, maybe, but this area is the heart of the heart.
It feels very much like that. Yeah, definitely.
We have come now to Clitheroe in Lancashire, where there's another crossing point in the spine of Albion. And we're here purely out of interest after the experience of our Dutch director, Christiane van Wyk.
So every now and then I get a voice speaking to me in the stage between sleeping and waking up. You know you're waking up, and so you're still sort of susceptible to hearing things. I've in the past had a male voice speak to me, and recently while we were filming Albion Heart of the World, I got a female voice saying, if you want to know what the most evil part is of the line, go to Clitheroe. The masculine part of the line is the most evil part of the line. She also said something about the female part, but I couldn't make that out. And so I woke up and I realized this is important because I've never heard of this word Clitheroe and I don't even know what it is. So I contacted David and asked if he knew what Clitheroe was.
And I said, yes, Clitheroe is a place in Lancashire. And given that the line was mentioned, I turned to the Spine of Albion book. I'd been concentrating on those sections that related to the places that we were planning to visit, and I'd not seen Clitheroe. So I looked through the index, there's Clitheroe, and there's a whole section on this town called Clitheroe and the Lion, which says, Clitheroe lies in the heart of the Ribble Valley, nestling between the two hills of Longridge Fell and Pendle Hill, all three places associated with tales of ghosts, witchcraft, and folklore of the devil. The devil was said to stalk the streets of Clitheroe, offering any locals he encountered 3 wishes to exchange their souls. I think he'd have had a lot more luck in Westminster, personally. This is my first visit to Clitheroe. It's a lovely place. I do recommend it for a day out. And, you know, I've found it to be lovely, and the people very, very pleasant and very friendly. But of course, there's the world of the scene And then there's the world of the unseen, the fourth dimension, the astral dimension, where all this stuff goes on. And I have felt parts of this field to be quite low vibrational, quite what you would say was dark, and then other areas to be very high vibrational, very, very loving, very joyful and pleasant. And so people will have to come and make of it what they will. But according to the book, the Ellen line comes through here as it passes through Clitheroe and right through the middle of this maze. It's a modern maze, but how symbolic it is that it's here, because this maze or labyrinth is so symbolic of life. You walk in and then you get confused and bewildered and lose track of who you are and what the hell's going on. So how appropriate that is. And the Ellen line comes through here, and then to the point up there, the ancient Clitheroe Castle. So I've climbed a big hill, and this is Clitheroe Castle. This is the keep of the castle, which is all that really remains. And it goes back to the 12th century, and there was a wooden one apparently that was earlier than that, but this was put up in the 12th century. And that big hole up there is called the Devil's Hole. And local folklore says that the devil threw a stone from yonder hill, and that's what caused the hole. I don't think he did, but there's a lot of themes of symbolic truth within some of these folklore stories. Now, where the Ellen and Belinus lines cross is right in the middle of this keep, and I've not been in here before, and Christiana got that it was one of the most evil places on the line. So let's have a feel when we go in here. It's a very small keep, one of the smallest of any castles in Britain. So this is where the Ellen and Belinus lines cross, according to the dowsing in the spine of Albion. And I don't find the energy terribly pleasant. And what you can do when you come to these places, it's why whenever anyone tells me somewhere is really dark and horrible, I'm running straight at it. Because you can use yourself as a conduit to bring in high vibrational expanded awareness and balance out the imbalance, which is what evil is, the absence of love, the imbalance of no love. And you can actually change the energetic field, because high vibration, what we call love, expanded awareness, is far more powerful than anything evil can throw at us, or the devil can throw at this keep with its rock. Be gone all imbalance, all chaos, all disharmony, all evil from this place. We have the power, not those that control us, not that which controls us. Controls us, we have the power. So that completes our tour of the Albion line, and from here it goes north through Carlisle Cathedral, Dunfermline Cathedral, and on out to the north coast of Scotland, and according to the book, through the Faroe Islands, and south goes from the Isle of Wight, across the English Channel to Bayeux in France. And Bayeux is where the famous tapestry is that commemorates the invasion of the Normans in 1066. And from then, according to the book, the line goes across France and into Spain. But it's where the Albion line crosses its home, I would say, in the Isles of Albion, that the real power and the real story can be told. This is a full moon, or what they call tonight, a super moon. Those who've read my books will know that I don't believe the moon is a natural body. I say it's been put there as part of the simulation to manipulate human psychology, not least through the manipulation of hormones and water. The moon is 2,160 miles in diameter. There is no way a body of that size should be circulating a little planet like planet Earth. And it makes no sense. Interestingly, Gary Bilcliffe says that the moon has a massive impact on the energy grid of planet Earth.
When the moon is full, that's usually when you get the most paranormal events on the Isle of Wight, because the moon pulls on the water, and the water's pulling up through the geology. So yeah, the right circumstances are occurring on the Isle of Wight for a paranormal experience. It is, that's why they call it Ghost Island. But yeah, the moon, I believe the moon is in this close orbit with the Earth for a reason. When I was young, I felt that for some reason that the moon was brought into our orbit as a foreign body, and deliberately to create the environment of high emotion, so that it depends on your belief system, but whether this is a school of experiences, it's a harsh school of experiences, because the moon creates that aggressive sort of energy.
And it has a big impact on hormones and
exactly.
what have you, and water,
Yeah.
which is much
Yeah.
of the body is water.
Yeah.
And that's precisely
right.
what I think is the situation myself, is that the moon is having a phenomenal impact on manipulating human society. And if it's having an impact on the ley line system, or the energy system, then that impact will be fundamental.
A lot of people I know worship the moon as these sacred sites, but they've never had positive experiences from it, interestingly, because they think it's a spiritual experience, but they tend to be people who are troubled anyway, and drawn to work with the moon, the troubled people, if you like.
The suppression and manipulation of information and knowledge through the centuries has been designed to delete awareness among the target population of the ley line and energetic system, while the cult hoards that knowledge within its global secret society network. And so profound locations become seen by the public as just a bunch of stones left by the ignorant ancients. To symbolize what I'm saying, right next to these stones is this, a pile of frickin' shit. Now, only the loss of knowledge, the loss of the sacred nature in its widest sense, not the religious sense, of this site and others would put this pile of shit here. On the same theme, this is billed as the biggest stone circle in the world, Avebury in Wiltshire, and look what they've done. They built a bloody road through the middle. How does anyone think that is going to affect the flow of energy? And it's been done either through complete bloody ignorance of what this incredible place is, or because they actually want to suppress the energy. And around 300 years ago, shows how far back the knowledge was lost, they started breaking up the stones of the biggest stone circle in the world and making buildings out of them. And of course, this is still magnificent, but so much has been lost because of that. And if you look around, you'll see little concrete stumps they've put in, which are where the original stones used to be. So that is the absolute nonsense that goes on because the knowledge has been lost or the knowledge is being suppressed. But now we're bringing it back. So the question comes, what can we do? And for the answer to that, we come back to the book I wrote in 1990, came out in 91, Truth Vibrations. Why did I call it Truth Vibrations? Because a number of psychics in that early period of my own awakening that I was synchronistically led to told me about an energetic change that was coming, that was going to awaken humanity from its coma, its big sleep. And that this would have two major effects. One, it would start to encourage and tease open people's minds to see the world in a different way. And secondly, it said all that had been hidden from us was going to be brought to the surface where we could see it. Now, in 1990, when I got that information and wrote this book, there was no evidence of any of that. But now, look at what we know about the world that we didn't know 30 years ago, 20 years ago, 15 years ago, 10 years ago. The truth vibrations, the truth coming to the surface is happening. And I mentioned earlier about a channeling that I witnessed in 1990 about Albion, the British Isles, being the heart center of the global grid. Well, it was a much longer channeling than that. And I just want to read you a little more of it in relation to the question, what is happening and what can we do? Now, I am looking to a time on your planet when these energies, this knowledge is reawakened and reintegrated into your consciousness. I'm not looking at a time when this knowledge will be for the few, passed on through initiation. But when your whole planet will be awakened to this understanding which you have simply forgotten. It is not a matter of new information, it is a matter of remembering who you are and where you come from. And it goes on to say that the more people who raise their vibration by raising and changing their perception and self-identity of self, the more these highly refined, high vibrational energies can be fed into this reality through us and into the lines and into the field to transform the field.
I feel that now, more than ever, mankind needs to be more consciously aware of the revitalizing and harmonizing power of the earth energies. And this includes the male and female lines of the spine of Albion and other layers such as the St. Michael line.
Whenever I come to stone circles, I walk around them. I walk around them 7 times in one direction, 7 times in the other direction. Well, that's strange, Dave, isn't it? Well, not really, because what's actually happening? Around this circle is spinning electromagnetic energy in the ley line. And we are electromagnetic energy. We are much more than the physical body you see, and therefore our electromagnetic field, some people call it the auric field, is interacting with the field of the ley lines as we walk around these stone circles. So if you come to these places with an open heart and joy and respect, then that energy, that high vibration is going into the ley lines. You are empowering them, you are raising their frequency, which is exactly what we want. But if you come here in a low vibrational state and you walk around them and interact with them, you are bringing the vibrational nature of the line down. And that is why Satanists, representing this global cult behind world events, come to these places and to these sacred sites in all their forms and perform their satanic rituals. What are they doing? They are systematically lowering the frequency of the line, which lowers the frequency of the field in general.
There's a few things you can do. With us today we've got a drumming group that's on the island. They go around lovely places in the island, in forests and on areas like this, and just play heartbeats and just raise the vibration. We've also got singing bowls. Kind of lose hours of time. It feels like you've been there 5 minutes and you've been drumming for an hour.
I suggest that visiting certain places of power along the spine of Albion, such as the node points, like St Catherine's Hill and Winchester, the Rollright Stones, the Cloud and Alderley Edge in Cheshire, and here we can direct pure light with unconditional love into the earth energy grid.
Albion was where these energies were switched off, which lowered the consciousness of the planet, which lowered the consciousness of humanity and caused us to forget all that we knew before. And so what is happening now? Albion is being reawakened. These points are being reopened so the knowledge, the consciousness can flow again into the field in which we are constantly interacting. And we, as we raise our vibration and visit these places, can make a phenomenal contribution to Albion awakening.
But this has to be done through the heart and not the mind. And I also think it's important to listen to the spirits of the land, as they will communicate through meditation as to how to positively work with the land.
The global cult and its simulated illusions must fall, for they depend for their existence on holding the field, thus the energy system, in a low vibrational state. Once that's over, the conspiracy is over, and they keep us in these states through the manipulation of anxiety and fear and depression. There is nothing to fear. We are all that is, has been, and ever can be. Albion, heart of the world, remember. Albion, heart of the world, awaken!
Albion, heart of the world, awaken!